Greetings, brothers and sisters. I'm Professor Spira, and today we're going to look at Lesson 16, Transition Diet, Part 2 in Arnold Ehret's Mucusless Diet Healing System, annotated, revised, and edited by Professor Spira. So this is part of a series. A few other videos before this went over the lesson preceded this, so we will continue right now checking out these very important lessons on the transition diet. Special transition recipes. Being known as a diet expert, I receive continual requests for a diet book or at least a collection of food combinations, mucusless recipes, and menus. Many volumes have already been published by numerous dietitians which are now on the market. They call them scientific diets, but not one of them is in accord with nature, such as exists in the animal kingdom, and which is simplicity with absolutely no mixtures at all. So here Ehret, he always resisted putting together a traditional diet book that had, with a bunch of recipes and menus and say, okay, well, you have to follow this. That wasn't something that Ehret wanted to do, but he put examples to get people started in the mucusless diet and menu ideas that once you look at how they're constructed in the principles, then you can start to create your own. I must again remind you that cattle, for instance, when in the wilderness, eat absolutely nothing else other than grass during their entire life. No animal, when eating, combines different foods at the same time or even drinks between mouthfuls of food, with the possible exception of domesticated animals changed into mixed eaters by civilized humans. The ideal, and at the same time most natural, method of eating for humans is one kind of fresh fruit in season, and you will soon notice after you have been living on the transition diet for a while that you will feel more satisfied and in fact are better nourished with one kind of fruit than with all kinds of scientific mixtures or prepared made-up foods. This condition cannot, of course, take place until your body is perfectly clean. So let's get into this. This is one of the huge misconceptions. And I don't even know if I can call it a misconception because yes, it's a misconception, but I don't understand why. Before that statement in the first, in lesson 15, in the first transition diet section, talked about how the all fruit diet idea, the reason why it doesn't work, the reason why people that try it fail, and then blame the fruit and blame the diet and say, oh, I'm not getting enough nutrition and this and that, instead of blaming not transitioning properly or slow enough, gradual enough, and not dealing with we're just not dealing with the system. And so here there's a difference between the philosophy of what is the ideal diet. In a perfect world, what could an ultimate goal be? Not to be reached in 1 or 2 years, maybe not to be reached in several decades, might not even be reached in this lifetime, but the ideal, where we come from. How many dozens and hundreds of generations did it take to get us to where we are now in terms of our consumption of pus and mucus forming foods? It didn't happen overnight. So it is a fantasy for us to think that we're going to be able to just scrap all pus and mucus forming foods in a matter of a couple days or a couple years or whatever. So, and my advice to you is stick to the gradual transition system. Don't get stuck in the idea and the obsession with what is the ideal diet, because I'm seeing that too much, and I'm seeing where Ehret's language is getting misconstrued by people that have a tendency for extremism, where they're looking for, like, oh, what's the highest level? I can do it today. But there's a mental issue going on there where why are you focused on that statement where Ehret says, well, the ideal food for humans is fruit, yet you disregard that the entire lesson that came before that said, you're not ready. You're not ready for that. You're not even ready for raw fruit yet. Eat nothing but stewed fruits, if that's where you're at. So this gradual nature, and I'm not saying that it's all easy. I'm not trying to sell you that like, oh, this is such an easy, just mucusless diet. You're gonna lose 10 pounds in 10 days. Like, I ain't giving you that. I'm saying that this is hard work, but understand what is hard about it. Part of what is hard is getting to the simplicity, dealing with how simple the diet can be. We essentially have to go from a place of more complexity, because our diets are way more complex, to transition towards simplicity. But we can't do it overnight. Nobody expects you to do it overnight, and you shouldn't expect that you are going to be able to do it in a short period of time. Nature's mills grind slow, but sure. This is about the tortoise and not the hare. This is not the hare diet system. This is about that gradual evolutionary change that happens over time. And you see me stressing this basically because there's people I'm talking to that and a lot of, there's hundreds of people that have, for whatever reason, have done that. Whether it's Steve Jobs, Stanley Bass, a number of people that have been practicing recently. This is a problem ever since the origin of the Mucusless Diet Healing System. And no matter how much Ehret expresses and emphasizes the point and the importance of transition, no matter how much I say it, or other people that have practiced the diet even longer than I, no matter that importance of the transition, for some reason, is lost. And I can't understand why. If you know why, please put down in the comment section how we can deal with that, because that's like, we got to be on a mission to let people know it's okay to transition. It's okay to eat the transitional foods. Don't feel sorry for yourself. Don't be all in your head thinking, well, the ideal human food is fruit. I got to get there. I'm not clean if I'm not eating fruit. Nobody said that. Ehret didn't say that. Don't misinterpret what he said, because that's another issue where sometimes if there's a self-esteem thing going on, where if you look in the mirror and you don't have nothing but unconditional love for what you're looking at, no matter how you look, no matter what stage of the game you're at, there should be love there. And what happens when there isn't is you're trying to construct this unrealistic image of yourself, and when you look in the mirror and you don't see that, there's cognitive dissonance, and you start to feel guilty or not worthy, and that's a problem. So if you know that that's an issue for you, then understand that that's something that you're going to have to work on and get into that kind of thing. I think the reason that some people say, like, for instance, when Ehret says, okay, the ideal and at the most natural method of eating for humans is one kind of fresh fruit in season, and you will soon notice after you have been living on the transition diet for a while that you will feel more satisfied and in fact are better nourished with one kind of fruit than with all kinds of scientific mixtures or prepared made up foods. The condition cannot, of course, take place until your body is perfectly clean. So in 2016, I'm seeing that people are misinterpreting and understanding what Ehret said in that sentence, where you're not, it's kind of like, okay, how do we confront ourselves and understand our condition? understand our pathological condition as human beings, as a race, that we're all in this together. How do we understand that yet not feel guilty or feel worthless or feel like we're unclean and filthy? That's not the point of what Ehret was saying here. It's not trying to scold you like you're not perfectly clean because you can't, and just because you eat nothing but fruit for a period of time definitely doesn't mean that you're living up to this. And that's what I think some people think. They're like, well, I've eaten nothing but fruit for the past 6 months. I must be perfectly clean because that's not the point. So please read through this again, listen to what I'm saying, and look at that, because there's no reason to go through a lot of the mental stress and trying to push yourself and all that kind of stuff if that's not what is enjoyable for you. See, some of the times when I'm talking about what I'm doing, or Brother Air, when you feel that intensity that's coming off and that hardcore vibe, that's just who we are. We're not saying you got to be like us, or you got to do what we're doing, or you got to have the same goals or value systems as we have, or Ehret had, or anybody else. Everybody's goals are going to be different, all of that. But understand that for us, pushing ourselves really hard and that kind of intensity, that's what's fun for us. We can be passionate about that, but that's not fun for everybody. So that's why sometimes might seem like there's a discrepancy between what I'm suggesting and sometimes what I'm doing, because it's like, well, you did such and such, well, isn't that too aggressive? And it's like, well, it might have been, but that was the way that I came into it, and I'm trying to, based on mistakes that I made, or not, it's not even mistakes, just based on experiences that I had that are like, oh wait, that I could have did that better. If I could go back, there's certain things I would maybe do a little different to refine things. I wouldn't do it different because I learned from it, and I can pass it on to you. If I did it right the first time, it might not even be something in my head as to try to get along to you, but just transition. That's why I'm hitting on this point. Transition, transition, transition. And to me, that's the most important part of all of this, because without transition, we shouldn't talk about fasting. We shouldn't talk about fasting until you start to really master and understand this transition. So I think I'm going to end it there for this little piece. We'll continue with the fruits and vegetables section in the next video. Peace, love, and breath.